Welcome to Broken Entertainment. So today I want to talk about this phrase that I have a tendency to repeat in conversations about our entertainment, and that is when you are a creator, the book is the thing. And it doesn't have to be a book. I use the phrase the book is the thing because I am a writer. The book is the thing means that nobody outside, until you have a fan base, nobody outside of you cares about what you're working on. And once you get produced or published or what have you, whatever the project is, that has to be your driving thing. That whatever that project is you're working on, the book that you're working on, that has to be the goal. The goal has to be completion and publication. Because if you're thinking, I want a movie deal, if you're thinking, ooh, Netflix, then you're not making it for the right reasons. You're not going to have the same level of passion, and you might even alter how you're writing. And at the end of the day, even if you get that movie deal or that Netflix deal, they don't care. Okay? Netflix does not care about your project. Hollywood does not care about your project. Your fans, assuming you have been published already and have fans, your fans care about your project. But Netflix and Hollywood they do not care. So if you make the book the thing, where that's where your passion goes, that's where your energy and your creativity go, then what you are doing is you are setting yourself up for success. Because that drive, that energy, that passion that creates great stories goes into your product rather than your dream. And what happens as a result might well be that dream. You know, a lot of aspiring writers and authors, and a lot of published authors, their dream, right, is J.K. Rowling, right? They want to make the big money. You want to get movies, you want to be famous, you want to be popular. That's fine. But don't make your book, don't make your project thinking about that. Make your project matter in and of itself. And if you do that, you will create something that might get you there. Because of your passion and your drive and your creativity all goes into that. And you don't edit yourself, you don't change yourself to try and fit the kind of thing Netflix and Hollywood might be looking for. And we can see this with George R.R. Martin. Is a great example, I think. George R.R. Martin, regardless of what you think of him finishing his books, regardless of how you might view him after he got his money, and that varies depending on who you talk to, he put an immense amount of energy and passion into A Song of Ice and Fire up to this point. And that's because when he was writing A Song of Ice and Fire, he wasn't thinking Netflix, HBO, Hollywood. He was thinking, I want to make an awesome story. He was driven by his passion for his project, for his work, for the world he was creating, the characters he was making, the stories that he was telling. And the result of that has made him a multimillionaire. And that's not because he aimed to be a multimillionaire, but because of his energy and passion for his work, he has built an enormous and very, very passionate fan base. I have done multiple videos on him completing his works and where I think he is, if I think he's going to do that. And a lot of people have responded, and a lot of people have watched those videos, and there's been passionate conversation back and forth. on this subject. And that does not happen without a quality work. Okay? So if you're a George R. R. Martin fan, if you're one of those people that has commented in those videos before saying, hey, I don't know why you're getting on his case, understand that I think, even though I am not a fan because I don't like that style, I think his work to this point speaks for itself. Tolkien was the same way. Okay? He put his passion and his energy and his creativity into the books. He sure as heck wasn't thinking back then about Netflix, which obviously didn't exist, or Hollywood. He was thinking about his story. The thing he was so passionate about, he wrote and created fully functioning languages. These were stories he told his children, and he wanted them written down, and that's where his passion went. And the result speaks for itself. And we have here another example of the book is the thing. Mark Millar. Sometimes apparently it's pronounced Miller, whatever. He made a comic called Jupiter's Legacy. And that comic propelled him to a certain level of success and fame within the comic book industry. And eventually, that was adapted by Netflix. But here's the thing. Netflix does not care. Hollywood does not care. HBO does not care. And we're going to talk about that in regard to Game of Thrones, but we'll get to that later. Here's an article on IGN about Jupiter's Legacy because it just got canceled. Now, he phrases it, not the writer, but Mark Millar phrases it as like, we made a hard decision and decided to go a different direction. But no, it got canceled. Okay? And the reason it got canceled, very simply, is Netflix doesn't care. And they don't have to. They're a huge company. They're looking for profit. They're looking for numbers. They're looking at what brings people in. And if they ain't doing it, they're going to scrap it. So, here's the article. After only one season and a cliffhanger finale, Jupiter's Legacy is coming to an end at Netflix. Though the adaptation of Mark Millar's comic series of the same name premiered just under 4 weeks ago, the series cast members have been released from their show commitment, effectively pulling the plug on another season. Although Netflix does not regularly release official audience figures, Jupiter's Legacy was featured in the streamer's top 10 category for several days after its premiere. However, it seems likely that the show did not perform to Netflix's expectations, particularly for a high-profile project that carried a more expensive production scale. I want to say on that note, it's always kind of weird to me when a company doesn't release viewership figure. Like, what are you afraid of? But anyway. And I have not watched Jupiter's Legacy. I watched part of the first episode, and, wasn't anything that was ever on my radar. I'm sure it's good. I'm sure the comic's good. It's just never been on my radar at all. And I'm not commenting on the quality of the show or the quality of Mark Millar's writing because, again, you don't get that fan base. You don't get that notoriety by writing something garbage, okay? Now, we can look to some examples. Twilight, for example, that are a little more questionable, but they obviously spoke to their audience, regardless of what the majority of people outside of that audience may think. We made the tough call of letting our incredible cast out of their show commitment as we continue to thoughtfully develop all realms of Jupiter's Legacy saga. We're confident we'll return to it later, and just want to say thanks to you guys for your continued support, and to the cast and crew who made this look so great. That's spinning, Oh yeah, we'll come back to it. Sure. Millar will soon launch Jupiter's Legacy Requiem, a new comic series that will continue the property's story. While the upcoming comic books may have been planned as a way to set up narrative threads for future television episodes, it could also touch on loose threads from the show's final season. This would be an immense mistake. This is what I'm talking about. The book is the thing. Do not, Mark Millar, do not create your comic series following Jupiter's Legacy with the idea of another season or touching on stories you told in the show. Focus purely on that comic and that story, and the rest will take care of itself. While this marks the end of Jupiter's Legacy as a series at Netflix, it's still only the beginning of the streamer's oncoming slate of Millar World content. Following his statement, Millar shared that a Super Crooks anime series will premiere on Netflix later this year. The streamer is also developing an American Jesus series, a film adaptation of Reborn, starring Sandra Bullock, and a television adaptation of Millar's comic series, The Magic Order. In a review of the first seasons of Jupiter's Legacy, IGN gave the series a 7, saying it delivers plenty of exciting superhero action, compelling stories, memorable characters, thanks to strong performances from its leading cast. So, Netflix doesn't care. And they don't have to, right? This is not their thing. And that's the thing. This is your thing. If you are the creator, what you are working on, that is your thing. It's not Netflix's thing. It's not HBO Max's thing. Warner Media's thing. None of those things. Because they don't care. And another extension of they don't care. Now, Mark Millar's got a little bit of clout. He was directly involved with this show, so he was able to kind of steer it and make sure it stayed more or less true to the comic, at least as far as everything I've heard. That's not true for a lot of creators. And you see bad adaptations all the time. And the reason you see bad adaptations is that people don't care. The people who care are the fans and the creator. If you don't care about what you're working on enough for that to be your only goal, if you don't care enough about it to say, you know what, I'm going to put it out there, and if it doesn't succeed, oh well, I still put it out there. I still felt passionately enough to get this done and produced. Nobody else has to care either. Because at the end of the day, it's not their property. It's not their passion. It's just another job for them. And we're going to see that with Amazon's Lord of the Rings. We already know they're bringing an intimacy coordinator. They're picking and choosing people because of their ethnicities and so on. Stuff that doesn't really matter to the world of Lord of the Rings as much. They're picking, they're putting people in charge who don't really care all that much about the Lord of the Rings. Now, Lord of the Rings movies are an exception, but that was basically made by very powerful fans. And you saw it with Game of Thrones, the HBO series. You can actually see. And this, again, I think speaks to the quality of George R. R. Martin's writing. Because the first, 5 seasons are based off of the books, almost entirely. And he was directly involved, he was advising, and so on. But here's where HBO didn't really care. Who did they put in charge of Game of Thrones? Dan and Dave. 2 idiots that had no idea what they were doing and had never run a TV show before. They're poor writers, they're poor show directors, but they had everything basically written out for them for 5 seasons. That's the only way you can see this drop-off that you're going to see here in a minute. This is on IMDb. These are the average ratings of each episode of Game of Thrones. First episode, 9.3. And we're going to skim through here because there's a lot of episodes. 9.3, 9.1, 8.8, 8.7, 8.8, 9.1, 9.2, 9.2, 9, and this is with, tens of thousands or more votes. 9.6, 9.5, 8.8, 8.5, 8.8. You can see it hovers in the high 8s consistently. 8.8, 9.1, 8.9, 8.8, 9.7. 9.7 out of 42,703 votes. Think for a minute about where you have to be in terms of quality to get 42,000 people to average out to 9.7 out of 10. 9.6, 9.7, 8.5, 8.5, 8.5. So on 8, 9, 9.9, 9.5. There's a 10 in here somewhere. I forget where it was. 8.5, 9.4. You know, you see where I'm going here. And I'm going to skim down. You know, we're still getting pretty high ratings. This is still, you know, this is well into the show at this point. You have 9.2, 9.8. Or 66 episodes in, you're still averaging at least an 8.8. 9, 9.4. And then it happens. Dan and Dave take full control. I want to say J.J. Abrams, I don't know why. George R. R. Martin walks back, and these two idiots that can't write to save their lives take total writing control. They run out of books to fall back on. And if they cared, if they were strong advocates of Game of Thrones, they would have continued to do very, very well. But you see that they don't care, especially in Season 8, when you start seeing stupid crap like water bottles showing up in episodes. In plain sight. Okay? That's a sign nobody cares. And the other sign nobody cares is while they were doing this, they were thinking Star Wars. Okay? They did not care about this, about Game of Thrones, because they wanted to get their hands on some Star Wars money. And that's awful. Look at what they did to the fans. Look at what they did to the show because of their greed and their lack of experience and the fact that they didn't care about the product. But that's what I'm saying. You care about your product. Your fans care about your product and nobody else. And it's a harsh reality. And it's a hard thing to understand for some people, but it's true. HBO only cared about Game of Thrones so long as it was making the money. They didn't care about why it was making the money. And Dan and Dave just thought they could keep rolling. Oh yeah, we'll just fill in whatever we want. We'll drop some plot threads because we don't know where those are going to go or what have you. And they just let it crash and burn and they didn't care. It's probably the biggest disaster on television I can think of in terms of ratings and a fan base getting pissed off. I have seen fans defend The Last Jedi and defend Rise of Skywalker. I have never seen anyone defend Game of Thrones Season 8. It is, for all intents and purposes, universally hated by the fan base. And the reason is they don't care. You want to see what I'm talking about? Episode Winterfell. Aired 2019. 7.5. 126,000 votes. And it doesn't get a whole hell of a lot better than that. 7.8. 7.4. 5.4. 5.4 with 158,000 votes. And this is from a show that averaged almost 9. 5.9. Final episode, 4. 233,170 votes. Gave it a rating of 4. Absolutely incredible. And it's because Dan and Dave didn't give a shit. So you have to remember as a creator, the book is the thing. If you want the kind of passion to make your stuff successful, that's what it has to be. Forget HBO, forget Netflix, forget Hulu, forget everything. Make your product. And if you do get so lucky as to have a show result from that product, understand the only way that show gets done well is by your direct involvement and the direct involvement of your fans, because you're the only people that care. We're going to see it happen to Lord of the Rings. So when I do say this is what I'm talking about. And you see a lot of projects fail to even get this far. And why do they fail to even get this far a lot of the time? Why do they fail from the get-go? Greed. People seeing the book as a stepping stone rather than the thing. Look at a lot of YouTuber a lot of YouTuber written books. They use their platform to sell the book and they want the money, but they don't put in the time and the effort in a lot of cases to make a great book. And you see it. But there are plenty of examples out there. I'm sure it's not hard to find them, okay? You can tell the difference immediately between somebody who sees the book as a stepping stone or an additional resource to make more money versus somebody who genuinely cares. Now, I will point out one YouTuber, Shad Brooks. All right? Despite what I think of his book, it is clear from page 1 how much Shad Brooks cares about that book. He deeply, deeply cared. He did not see it as a stepping stone. And readers and viewers and so on can see this as well immediately. They see through it. And I hate to see fellow YouTubers go out and create stuff and only do it for the sake of the money. Because to me, that's disingenuous. And it's unfortunate that people do it, but they do, and we see it a lot in the comic book industry as well, where you have all these comic books that come out and they're garbage, and it's because the people who made them don't care. They're just making the comic to hopefully get a Netflix deal. So if you're a creator, remember, don't get your head in the clouds. Focus on your work. Focus on what you're making, because at the end of the day, that focus, that driven passion, that will be the difference. That will be what gets you across the finishing line. That will hopefully build a fan base, and that can lead to other things. But don't look past it. Don't see it as a stepping stone. Don't see it as another resource. It has to come from the heart, or it's not art. It's just a product. It's just a thing. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments down below. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. Hit the bell for notifications, and I will see you next time.